You're listening to another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, we're getting close to the end of the week. I'll be glad of that. Anyway, we got a lot going on in Burleson these days, and today we're going to talk about water damage of all kinds and also the potential for mold damage. And I know it's one of those topics that, you don't really think about until it's too late, and that's why I have Stop Restoration here. Morris and Lisa Smith will come and tell us what to look for, what the damages could be, and the unseen damage that could be going on, and that's the real issue. Every time that Lisa talks in our B&I group, Morris, I want to run home and check my house and it's still standing, Melissa will get up there about, your roof, oh my God, and then she'll go, there's water here and there, and I'm like, I just hope my home isn't collapsed by the time I get home. But the thing about it is, this happened to us many, many years ago. We had some mold damage and it became visible, and we found out we had more than was visible. And that's what y'all are here for, to tell us what to do and what to call, because from what I've been told, y'all get it right the first time.
Always.
Yes. Well, we've been told that so many times. She has us well trained, but it's good to have y'all back. Before we jump into all that stuff, though, I want to go over an event going up Saturday. That it is an American Legion garage sale. They're raising money for veterans here, and they're also going to be having a flag ceremony on Memorial Day, on the 26th, on Friday the 26th. And so if you have a veteran that's buried out in the Burleson Cemetery and you want a flag there, they'll have a program going on for that. So if you want to talk about having a flag on your loved one's grave who served in the military in some manner, he or she, you need to talk to Sanford Mason. Sandy Mason will take care of it at alpost235@yahoo.com. That's the American Legion. They meet at Boulevard Baptist every second Thursday of the month, and they do a lot of stuff for veterans. Like I said, this garage sale is going to be over by the gun shop over off of Wilshire, Chisholm Gun Shop, which is in the same parking lot area as Antonio's, and there's behind a medical clinic. I've been in that shop a couple of times, and they got a nice collection of weapons, and I know y'all are sticking them in with people, so so it's a nice place. I don't know if you've ever been there, but if you ever need ammo or guns, it's a reputable dealer. But anyway, that's where the garage sale is going to be Saturday, and there's going to be all sorts of things, and it's here to raise money for veterans. So there you go. All right. Also, I'll just run through the sponsors real quick. You know about half of these people. Okay, CrossFit Burleson. I'm going to have the new owners of CrossFit Burleson on in a couple of weeks. All right. Daniel has reached an agreement with some new owners, and we're going to be talking with them, but they're going to continue to sponsor at least for the short term. We'll see how long. At CrossFitBurleson.com, nothing's really changed in terms of services or plans or programs, but we're going to go in all of that, I believe, June 6th, which is coming up a lot quicker than one might think. But anyway, you won't notice any difference. It'll still be the same service, quality service. Shandy Stogsdill, the Stogsdill Group, we're going to have her on in about 2 months. We're going to give the poor girl a break. She was on a lot with that election campaign, but she still does in a lot of real estate in this area. She's doing stuff for us at the Allard family, and so it's going to be a really good deal, I know, because she really knows the real estate, what's going on with the rates and whatnot. So call Shandy if you're looking to move in or around this area. Also, our friend Otto at our place, everybody knows him. Big shot, we've met there ourselves a couple times.
Yes.
And it's a down home place, and that's a compliment around here, down home, But you go there, and Otto cracks me up. It really does, because, they're very busy, and they move along, and he just kind of schmoozing with the customers, and it's just like an old school kind of Vegas kind of restaurant, maitre d'. But they have great service, and people, when you say, "Well, that looks crowded," they'll get you on the table quick.
Yes.
So Our Place Restaurant, thank you. Also, Wild Cigar and Culture. They're having drink specials Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and that's on a routine basis, but quite often they have specials on Thursdays, so check out their webpage for that. Wild Cigar and Culture over by the Standard, a decent smoke, a decent drink. It's a good place to go. Also, our friend Tiffany Nico, also in the same building. Well, no, she just moved. That's right. I forgot. Anyway, Tiffany Nico at Local Life, the new magazine, they'll be out in a couple weeks. We're going to have, I believe this June, they'll have what they call Local Heroes, where people can nominate people from Burleson area that do more than just show up. They really make the community work, and it's a great magazine. So we're looking for that, because everybody can nominate somebody. Local Life magazine. It goes to 30,000 homes. It's really a good advertisement. I mean, it goes to a lot of people in Crowley as well. So there you go. Also, Southern Gem, we know Gail, of course. She's poor woman. She's trying to get that downstairs as quick as she can, and just like every time they get close to it, oh, it's going to be another week, or But she, by golly, is going to be downstairs by Memorial Day weekend. And it's going to be great.
Awesome.
Yeah, it really is. I've had some people, I haven't been in there myself, but because, there's people working in there and stuff like that, but the other people have gone in there, and they said it really is going to be very nice. So Southern Gym over at the Windmill right now, the third floor, soon to be first floor. Also, thank you to Caleb Bettino, First Do Detailing. He's going to do my car and Robin's car sometime next week, I believe. But if you want to have your car detailed and washed, power washed, why not? 817-776-0478. I got to read off the glare. 817-776-0478. And he'll come to you. I believe he's doing Gala's car today or tomorrow at their place. Or one of the Southern Gym ladies is having a car done. And he's going to go right to their place of business and work on it in the parking lot. So it's a pretty nice little deal. So thank you, Caleb. Also, Old Pro Roofing, he's a new member of BNI as well. John Williams is the Old Pro Roofing local representative, 817-734-2756. He's just like the rest of the Williams family. Aren't they the nicest family?
They are.
Him and Greg certainly, and then
Jenny and
Julie, who works with Mandy over at the Creative Concepts and sits in our meetings sometimes. It's like just the all-American family. Anyway, Old Pro Roofing, they're from Old Town. Everybody knows them, so they'll come check your roof out and make sure that you got what it takes. And y'all do a lot of cross business, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good thing. And speaking of cross business, also we have Melissa, Texas Farm Bureau, 682-804-0534. That's a really good thing about the BNI thing, is that we're trying to slowly build these little groups, right? Power teams, right?
Yes.
And I have somebody I'm hoping to bring, if not next week, a week after that, as an electrician.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll see. They'll say, yeah, we'll come, and then, well, let's see. But I'd like to get them here. And because that would be a nice thing to add. 682-804-0534. She'll check out your rates and your plans, your coverages. And if she can help you, she'll tell you. If she can't, she'll tell you. I had pretty good insurance, really. I wasn't unhappy with it. So I said, oh, okay, and let's see what you got. And she saved me money. And she upped my house insurance. And I still saved about $50 a month. And I got increased coverage, which is a good thing to have. So 682-804-0534. And of course, y'all, we'll be talking about y'all, quite a bit. And how, last time we talked a little bit about how you got into it, but we'll talk about that some more. Do we have any nonprofit stuff going? Well, we do have the Honey Tour and all that coming up in a week from this weekend. That's a big deal. In fact, it starts a week from today. There's going to be carnivals, and there's going to be vendors, and there's going to be all sorts of events, and the bike race itself. Well, it's not a race. It's just various links. Y'all ever been around somebody or been to that one in Wichita Falls by any chance?
No, not
the Hotter Hill. It's a big deal. The Hotter Hill is a big deal, and Honey Tour I think will become like that in a sense. That'll be a stop. There's it's not so much like a professional racing circuit, but there's a circuit of communities that put these on, and all these bikers go to them. All these not motorcycles. What am I saying? All these bicyclists will go to these things, and it's really funny. You go to the one in Wichita Falls, and they do it in downtown, and the night before it's like a big cult meeting, and you go into the municipal auditorium where they have all the vendors and stuff, and there's so many things associated with bikes that you can't even think of it. You just think it's a bike and whatever. Oh no! They got stuff you wouldn't believe, and you go the morning of. It starts at 7 a.m. and then they do it in downtown Wichita Falls, and they cross over this old bridge, for the start. And before that, you have a prayer, you have the national anthem, you have the flyovers from Shepherd Air Force Base, and my dad, he was wearing a Texas flag shirt. He says, I'll be the one in the Texas flag shirt. Him and about half the other crowd. Or it's either that or USA.
Wow.
American flags is all red, white, and blue, and it's about maybe 13,000 people.
Wow.
And I think Gabrina has that in mind. But anyway, I'm getting off the topic. We need to talk about more exciting stuff. Now, y'all have been in this business for how long now?
6 years.
Yeah.
6 years. Now, but this is something y'all got into. Your previous careers were not in restoration, were they?
No. We were both corporate people, and we always had something going on the side while we were working in corporate America, whether it was consulting or recruiting. Then I left my job in corporate America, and we opened up a car dealership, and we did that for several years with our son, which was pretty cool. He's still in the car business. He's got a Ford dealership up in Larned, Kansas, Morris Smith Automotive Group.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That car dealerships, though, it's a tough racket, isn't it?
It has its ups and downs for sure.
Yeah.
But I think we were in Germantown, Tennessee, which is right out of Memphis,
Right.
and realized, you know what? Neither one of us is independently wealthy, so somebody's got to go back to work. And that brought us to the Fort Worth area. And then it was like, okay, I need to find something to do because apparently nobody wants to hire me. And so here we are.
Yeah. Yes, it is a little more difficult than one might think. It's more seasoned people, you might say, to find a decent job. That's why I do a podcast, I guess. I don't know. That and I'm a little lazy. I don't know. But anyway, but I mean, it's just, so you were looking for a business and you stumbled onto this one, so to speak. Did you go to like a franchise fair or something like that? Or
They have, I'm going to call them franchise recruiters, but basically different franchises hire these recruiters to go out and find people that would be a good match to own one of their franchises. And so I actually had spoken to this particular franchise recruiter several years before, but the timing just wasn't right. And then timing happened to come together. She called me out of the blue and we started a conversation, and we considered several different franchise opportunities, and we ended up with Stop Restoration, which actually was for the best. God had a plan.
I bet that sounds like it. It's like, it's amazing because I never thought of myself as coming into a podcast business, and here I am annoying people 3 times a week. But you know, it wasn't like y'all grew up and said, I can't wait.
No.
Store homes. It's my, you know. Well, you know, and a lot of people they find themselves in jobs or situations that if you had asked them 20 years ago, they would, what are you talking about?
Yes.
You know, and so, you know, like you said, God does have a plan because this is where you're supposed to be.
Well, I was just determined to use that business degree that I'm still paying for, so it worked out. You know, some people go to college and they never use the degree they earned. So,
well, but see, when you take on a franchise like this, it isn't like, okay, now we'll see you and go restore homes. I mean, there must be tremendous amount of training and education you had to go through.
Yeah, I want to say it was close to a year's worth of training before we ever really did anything, and that's you know, each of us had to, and then you have to train the employees and train the staff, and of course there's on-the-job training, but then there's formal training, and you send them to classes. It's pretty involved, you know. Simple things like water damage. Well, to a lay person, well, I'll get the box fan out of grandma's room and put it across the carpet and it'll dry. No, not really. It's not going to work that way. And you know, if it might work in 6 months, but by then you've got a whole lot of other problems going on. So there are a lot of nuances and intricacies, and Texas has a whole set of laws and regulations around mold remediation that you know you've got to be aware of.
Right. It isn't like you can just put your sign up that says I remove mold. You have to be certified by the state, and you have to go through all that process. And it isn't just merely a matter of filling out a form, hit submit, and wait for the certification. You have to show that you know what you're doing, and some sort of is it like a test of some sort?
Yes.
They won't even consider you until you have 2 years of related experience under your belt. And then they might consider letting you sort of do the testing. And in fact, there are prerequisites before you can even sign up for the class that you have to take. It's involved.
Where do you take these classes? Online? Or
No,
you have to go to Austin or something like that?
Thankfully, Fort Worth being the metropolitan area that it is, the classes that we needed were offered here locally. I think Euless, was it?
Euless, Bedford.
Yeah.
There's a testing center over there, I believe.
Yes, there is.
That's okay. But, you know, that's what people don't understand. They think, well, gosh, I got mold. I was going to run over to Lowe's and get something off the counter. And it doesn't work that way, does it?
No, unfortunately, it doesn't. And as Morris has stated, it's definitely an in-depth process in terms of you actually have to sit for a 100-question test with the state. And prior to that, you have to take water courses, and then you can take the mold remediation. And as you stated, not all companies are created equal, and we are mold remediation contractors. Both he and I are licensed, and our company is a mold remediation licensed company with the state. And there's so many things that we have to do as it relates to the regulations that you can't do. You can't just pull up your truck, like you said, and start doing it. And a lot of times what we find is that when we start educating our customers, because that's the first thing we do while we're dealing with it, but we want to educate them and let them know just what you see to the visible touch. Because a lot of people, I'll just put some bleach on it, or I'll kilt it. And it's like, okay. So then what happens when it grows from behind it, because it doesn't kill it? Mold, by itself should actually be removed. And so those are some of the things that we get into and we explain to them, because a lot of times companies will provide incorrect information if they're not licensed. And
If there's one thing the listeners should take away from today with respect to mold, bleach does not kill mold.
Agreed.
And even dead mold spores are hazardous to human health.
Yes.
So if you hire a guy and he says, I'll spray some bleach on it, show him the door.
There are people actually who do that. It was not a violation of state law, or if they did.
Very much so.
Okay. All right. I just didn't wonder if there's you could get that service, but if you want to go cheap and, temporary, whatever. But actually, if they say this will kill your mold, this will take care of your mold problem without your certifications, then the state will jump all over them, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
There's a whole process to that. And so one of the things that happens in the process at the end, there's a certificate that's issued. So anyone that's not licensed cannot issue that certificate of clearance and working in conjunction with what's called a mold consultant. So there's a whole process to it and how we have to file, and there's different mold remediation plans that we have to write. There's a whole process to it. Unlike water, where water you're coming in and you do need a certification for that as well. And so you can perform the service or what have you, but mold is even more in depth because of the legalities and regulations that surround it. And a lot of times people take advantage of others. So you really want to make sure that you have a licensed mold remediation company as well as contractors involved with your home.
So when people call you, that's probably one of the first things you say, hey, this is, we're legit, we're licensed. Don't just listen to any guy in the truck or whatever, or something you see on Facebook. You need to, know who you're talking to and what they know what they're talking about. Last time I was at your place, which is right off the tollway, by the way, in case y'all want to know where it is. Y'all were in the middle of a training session.
Yes.
So it's an ongoing thing. It's kind of reminds me of my school days. I mean, we had to do all this stuff routinely. I still do it for Hill. It's like, I've already done this.
Right.
Is this a friend of yours here, Ms. Whitmore?
Yes. Hey, Travis. Yes, it is. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, my goodness. All the way out of Virginia.
Is out of Virginia?
Yeah, she's in Virginia.
How about that? Well, see, that's what happens when you come on the show.
That's what happens. You're right.
Global reach.
Well, actually, I get a monthly report from the service I have that puts me on the podcast, and I had some listeners last month from Belgium. I'm like, who in the world?
Crowley, Texas.
Yeah. But who would have ever thought here in this area of the state? And what could we be talking about that's interesting to them? But I don't know. And I had some from Australia, and maybe they were just horsing around, and I came across it. I'll take it. But anyway, back to y'all. So you've been in this 6 or 7 years, and you wanted to do it in this area, even though y'all are from, I believe, Tennessee, as you mentioned. And I think you're from Georgia, aren't you, Lisa?
Originally born in Florida.
We
met in Georgia.
Okay.
And then we lived in Tennessee most recently before coming to the great state of Texas.
Great state of Texas.
Great state of Texas.
Well, it's not so bad. I've been here almost all my life. I'm the only person outside of my family, 3 generations, that was born outside of Texas or Oklahoma. I was born in an Army base.
Oh, wow.
In North Carolina. And so I'm kind of like the outlier. But anyway, so you've been here, you set it up. How do y'all market yourselves besides this and B&I? But how do y'all get your word out? Because it's tough getting a business off the ground.
So you're correct in that. So my boss, which is Morris, kindly has hired me as one of the marketing reps. And then we also have another marketing representative where we actually go business to business, whether it's to schools, to hospitals, to insurance agents, to plumbers, plumbing supply houses. That's one of the ways we get the word out. We also have digital marketing that helps us with that process. And then word of mouth. And like you said, other networking groups. We also do mailers. We do constant contact information and different things like that. Of course, we're on Facebook. We to what extent Nextdoor lets us, we do, and Instagram in different ways like that. And of course, your awesome podcast here, Mr. Allard.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I told some people a couple of days ago, hey, we're going to have y'all on, and we're going to talk about water damage and mold. And they said, hey, I actually could use that information. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, you're just going to rant about Joe Biden again. No, no, not this time. I'll save that for later. But, they said I could actually use this information. And so I hope this helps. But, getting it out there, particularly when you're new to the state, it's a 24/7 job, isn't it?
Yeah, it took quite some time for things to ramp up. I don't hide the fact that our first year in business, I don't think the phone rang once. I think maybe at the 10th month, we got 1 or 2 phone calls, but that was it. And that was, almost a full year in business. Of course, no revenue, but plenty of expenses. So it was tough. And then COVID came.
Oh, boy.
And we had to deal with that. And, thankfully we were blessed and we actually thrived during the COVID period. Yeah.
How's that?
People needed our services.
Right. But but it just, I guess, when they're in the house.
Snowmageddon, too.
Yeah,
Snowmageddon. Now that one I could see, but I guess with COVID, I guess people were stuck in their house more and they maybe noticed these things more.
There were ups and downs, right? So people didn't want anyone in their house because back when COVID first started, the government was telling us, if somebody breathes on you, you're going to die. And so they closed the doors and nobody would come. They didn't want anybody in the house. We'll live with the mold. We'll live with what have you. But when it comes to things like water damage and you wake up in the morning and the carpet is squishy, well, that's got to be dealt with right now. And so there was definitely that that COVID didn't stop that kind of thing. Things that were optional, like, duct cleaning that we do, well, that kind of did slow down, but there are still biohazards, there's still unattended deaths, there's still fires. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that, COVID or no COVID, they still need service.
Well, you mentioned 2 things I was going to mention a bit later, the fire situation and the unattended deaths. There's nobody really thinks about that.
No.
We talk about mold and we talk about water damage because is that your most common business?
The most, yes. And we do quite a bit of commercial and residential duct cleaning.
Okay.
There's other stuff.
But the water damage you were talking about, just want to say to him, I think during COVID also, is that your kids are home. So that helped us too, because we had quite a few where they were running the water, they left the sink running. It was so funny. Some of the stories, it's probably not funny to the parents, but to us, we're like, they just thought it was great to just have a pool in the bathtub or just leave the water running in the sink because they, they're not used to being home themselves because they're usually at school. So they turn those things off and instead they're having a good time. So, it may not have worked for the parents, but it definitely helped our business for sure.
Well, the situation I mentioned about my own house was a hot water leak, hot water heater leak. That's it. And it was out in the garage, but it still worked his way in.
Of course.
This was about late 90s, I believe it happened. So I would have used y'all, but y'all were in Tennessee selling cars. But it's about about 20 years ago.
Yes.
And it's a deal.
It is.
It's not like, okay, we just the cleanup is not just we're going to wipe this down and thank you, here's the check. I mean, it's a whole extrication process, isn't it? And and it's not cheap. Does insurance cover most of this?
When it comes to water damage, generally they will. Mold, though, that's hit or miss. And, one of the things we always talk about is reviewing your insurance policy. A lot of people don't realize that most insurance policies, at least that we've seen in this area, don't cover mold.
Right. Melissa is telling us before one of our meetings that, you need to make sure you keep on top of it because if it gets out of hand, your insurance company may not cover it because it's so common in Texas.
And then, not Melissa's company, but other insurance carriers, they're like lawyers. They're looking for that one key word that they can sort of say, oh, sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting you mentioned that because I've had about 4 or 5 people that sat in that seat in our Texas Farm Bureau clients, and they love them.
Yeah.
And John Williams told when he was talking about roofing, he says they're the easiest one to deal with, and that's not just a paid-for plug for Melissa. It's the truth. I mean, we've been hearing that in our meetings for a long time now.
We've done some jobs for Texas Farm Bureau, not out of Melissa's office, but they find ways to help their clients. It's not just some 800 number, and you're talking to a guy in Thailand or the Philippines or what have you. They're actual Americans on the phone, trying to help other Americans. So that's one of the things I love about them.
Yeah, and I had to be persuaded to come over because I was USAA and they were fine, for me. But like I said, she saved me some time and money. But anyway, on the water damage, so if I had another leak from my hot water heater, would that be covered by insurance?
Generally, so I'm not an adjuster, so I can't say, but generally what we see is water from hot water heaters is generally covered.
Okay, good. Well, that's my only real concern. Yeah. But then again, you never know. It could happen again, with toilet leaks, and you don't even notice it. And, and then it's too late, and then you have to rip up the floors and all this other business, and it's just a mess,
And I do want to have one correction, because one of the things we did do is we did have most recently a referral out of the Texas Farm Bureau out of Burleson, and we partnered with Old Pro Roofing as well with John. So it works out really, really well.
Oh, you betcha it does.
And we're 24 hours, so it works. And we were able to take care of a really substantial job for them, and it was for a family, unfortunately, that had some challenges with their spouse. So the spouse had to stay in the home because of a medical situation,
right?
And so our team was able to be professional and work around that whole situation. But like you said, with water, a lot of the times, you look at it and you go, oh yeah, let me get 2 fans from Home Depot, or let me go get my shop back. And one of the things I've learned being in class and also listening to this smart gentleman next to me is that dry to the touch is not always dry.
Right.
So it takes more thermal imagers we're looking at, or testing that we're doing behind the scenes, or once you're looking at it, our team is monitoring with different what's the tool?
The water shark.
Yeah, the water shark, and then even the moisture meter, looking at the moisture that is in the walls, or depending on where it is, and it's just different situations. And we even had one case that's really and this is why we say you want to react, and as you said, to water immediately, because it was a situation where the water was caught in 24 hours, but unfortunately they hired a different company. And they ended up with a mold because they set fans. They didn't do it right the first time. They didn't pull the padding. They didn't pull the carpet. It was a soaking wet situation. 2 inches of water throughout the entire home.
And it started wicking up the walls.
And it wicked up the walls. And 5 days later, they still had the carpet down, padding down, and fans. And unfortunately, microbial growth had entered. And then it was tested, and the mold consultant confirmed that it was mold. And it's just a situation where then the homeowner's stuck because they don't know. So you always want to make sure, as we state, we definitely want you to use us, but you definitely want to make sure whatever company you're using is trained appropriately, and look at their website, look at their reviews, see how they're performing. It's very important to make sure you have the right partner in these situations, because it's, I think it's probably most folks' largest investment.
Oh, of course, yes. Now, we kind of switch gears. You mentioned, Morris mentioned fire and unattended death. Let's go to fire. How does that work? I mean, I can imagine in my head, pretty clearly what happens with the water, but when you have a fire situation, what's the issues you're facing with that?
So I think when people think of a fire, they generally think of a building burning down to the ground. Like, I guess last month, one of the city buildings here had burned. But generally what we see more often than not is a fire in a room, a kitchen fire, a stove fire, where a pot catches on fire. The whole house doesn't burn. But even in those instances where you have, and I'll use that example, a kitchen fire, there's a lot of smoke, there's a lot of soot. It goes through the air conditioning system, and that smoke, soot, and smell pretty much penetrates the entire home. So even on what people would consider to be a small fire, it can be very involved in properly remediating and cleaning it. Floors, walls, and ceilings have to be properly wiped down to remove the soot. And you use special chem sponges to wipe soot off the wall before you try to use a liquid cleaner. And even when you do that, you still may have to remove cabinets and drywall because, of course, the smoke gets behind the cabinets. So you can't effectively clean behind the cabinets unless you remove the cabinets. And then, of course, there's the odor. If you've ever been to a campfire fire, you know what burning wood smells like. Well, when you go into a home, even if you had a small fire in the kitchen, the entire house will smell like that. And so we use things like ozone machines and hydroxyl and other products to sort of deal with that smell once we've removed the source of the odor, which generally is the soot and burned materials, et cetera.
Wow. I mean, fortunately, thank you God, I've never had that situation,
Yes.
but I've had other people. I know people that had some fires. One was like an electric fire, you know, just, and it really was not a big fire. They put it out pretty quickly, but it still was an issue.
Smoke, yeah.
Yeah. It's still,
And not only that, it's an emotionally charged situation for the homeowner. And so that's where stop differs as well, because we first come in and make sure the family is okay. Are you guys okay? Is there anything you need in the case of an emergency? Do you have clothing? Do you have food? Do you have shelter?
I've seen Lisa get a call on a fire and the house is burned significantly, and she's out there taking the family to Walmart, you know, giving them gift cards and what do you need? You know, we'll get you in a hotel tonight, because often the insurance isn't there when it happens. And
Right.
so, you know, I've seen her go out and try and really do right by folks.
well, it's quite obvious as I've gotten to know Lisa. This is not just a job, but a mission. You know, this is God's calling, and God calls people to do all sorts of things to be where they're at when they're needed. And so I have no doubt about that. But fortunately, like I said, I never had to deal with the fire myself. I mean, I've burned some stuff on a stove, but I haven't had a fire. But
And I hope you never do,
no.
you know, knock on wood. But
Yeah.
in the event that someone does, we pride ourselves on trying to make sure the family's okay. And then we deal with the rest in terms of, you know, the whole fire department's involved. It has to be cleared before you can enter the property. There's a whole process.
yeah, well, the closest thing I ever had, this sounds odd, it's not a fire, but we had a skunk die in the garage.
Ooh.
And oh my goodness, it took a week for us to get rid of the odor,
Yeah.
you know, and it was just
But first of all, it died, and then it's a skunk.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just like
Bad
you
on top
twofold.
of
Right,
that.
right.
and it's just, and so really just it almost drove us out of the house. I can only imagine that, you know, smoke would be the same thing, I suppose, same kind of experience.
You know, they have products now specifically designed to remove skunk odor. I you know, till the last couple of years, I had no idea they even
Yes.
had a thing, but maybe it's a new product.
Well, what happened, this is many years ago, back in the mid-'90s, the neighbor across the street was a nature lover, and she had some skunk odor remover.
Okay.
And we poured it all over the dead skunk and all over where it died. It got caught in one of the garage door railings and whatnot, and so we sprayed all around that, and so it took care of that, but it got into the air conditioning system.
Oh, yeah.
And so
It's pretty strong.
And this was like late August. School had just started, so we're having the windows up, and we couldn't. We're both working, so we couldn't
100
leave.
degrees.
Yeah, we couldn't leave the windows down while we're gone all day.
Right.
So we'd leave them up as long as we could, and then we'd put them back down. We'd come back from after school, or my wife at the time was working somewhere else. Boy, and we couldn't do the air conditioner, so it took a while. Do y'all ever do anything like that?
We do odors. We're working on a project right now where someone passed away in the home. It's a condo, actually. And so it's not really an easy way to talk about it, but if someone passes away in the home and spends several days, there's a distinct odor that permeates the entire property. And this being a condo, that odor went to the next adjoining property. And so there's a lot of cleanup involved. In part of it is getting rid of bodily fluids and that sort of thing, but then having to deal with odors and bugs and viruses and germs and bacteria, not only in the unit that actually experienced the event, but the adjacent unit, because again, it doesn't stay there.
Is that a common call you get?
People die every day.
Well, but they unattended like that?
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately.
You do more business than I thought. I always, when I think of your business, you talk about water damage and whatever else at our meetings. You don't really talk about unattended death very often, which we're all glad, thank you. we're all fine with that. That's a kind of a bring down.
It's not an easy way to
Well, we
talk
say
about
biohazard. We dress it up.
Well, when I say biohazard, I'm thinking of like when my kids are still wearing diapers. But really, I guess it's a sad story in a way because of dying alone like that. And maybe days or a couple of weeks before anybody notices they're gone.
Hoarders as well, or the conjunction of a death and a hoarder. So you can get a whole combination of different things that we've dealt with.
They still have that TV show on about hoarding. I remember I watched a couple episodes and thought, how do people live like that? You know, my wife in particular is like, she gets claustrophobic. There's too much stuff around. She wants stuff out of the house, But
it's one of those things that you think, oh, that's for TV. That's made up until you see it, and it's like, wow, that's a real thing. And people really have issues. It's not that someone's a bad person,
right?
But they really have issues that causes that to occur in their life, and so dealing with that by itself is a whole nother set of things to manage.
And another emotional situation where the team, again, you want to go in and you have to work through that process, especially when we're doing what we call contents, and we're managing those contents for them, or doing a pack out and helping that hoarder or the family if the person hasn't passed away, or if it's an older situation, older situation, then making sure that that owner is comfortable, because you got to work that process, because again, that's another emotionally charged situation. So you have to really be aware of those types of things you don't think about,
Well, we probably have older relatives that live through depression or hard times, and they wouldn't throw anything out.
Correct.
And that's not really the same thing as a hoarder, but that does mean, they will not throw out in case you need it. I remember some of my older relatives, they were like, they wouldn't rip open packages. They would unfold it and then fold it and put it away, because that way you could use it later. And I remember my grandmother, every year when giving gifts, I had the same Christmas package ornaments with it, and then I'd have to give them back to her, because we're going to see them again. Yeah, as a reuse next year. And that's
Very
just
true.
that's the way they were raised and whatnot. But they, I think when you talk about hoarding, you're talking about probably a mental condition of sorts.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's a lot different.
There was one we had where they had literally garbage bags full of used coffee grounds. I have no idea. I mean, where did they collect these used coffee grounds from? Your local McDonald's? I mean, it was not just a Ziploc bag full, literally trash bags full,
floor to ceiling,
throughout the home.
I do know a purpose of those. They make great fertilizer for certain types of plants. Yeah, compost for like azaleas and stuff.
They'd have been fertilizing a forest.
Yeah, my wife, she'll keep some of the grounds and she'll put them in the garden area with the gardenias and such. But it sounds like she was going to be doing more, like 40 acres or something like that.
Guys had to climb over bags, and they were walking on a layer of debris, and it was an obvious issue.
Yeah. How do you handle that though? I mean, you have to clear out all that stuff, and are you dealing with somebody that's not going to be very cooperative?
By the time we get called, someone has made the decision that something has to be done, whether it's the property owner or the property owner's family. Now, even when that does occur, there's still, it takes certain nuances to handle it, because even when you decide, okay, I've got to do something, it doesn't necessarily mean you're actually prepared to see your stuff get disposed of. But generally, by the time we get called, someone's made the decision that it needs to happen.
Is any of it salvageable? Take it to the Goodwill or the Harvest House or something like that, or is it pretty much junked out?
Again, by the time we get called, they're done.
They're done.
I just need this fixed. And so there is some sorting through, and there's some stuff I can't give this up. I have to keep it. But if you sort through every single thing,
you'd be there a month and a half.
And our guys get paid by the hour. So, but again, we don't make those decisions. We kind of help to empower the property owner, the property owner's family, to decide what they want to keep or not keep.
Yeah, still, that's still be tough.
Yeah.
I mean, emotional dealing. So, and then you talked about earlier about fire situations in particular, because water damage, I guess, can happen, but and it's a subtle thing. But fire is very dramatic, and so you probably had dealing with a lot of raw emotions and whatnot. So Did they teach you how to do that in those classes, or you just had to bring that with you?
Kind of bring that with you,
You
just
betcha.
being to, God helping us and then just having a human spirit and having those soft skills. I think maybe from HR helped me a little bit in my previous life, but just feeling for people. I mean, that's the right thing to do. We're not just walking up, handing them a pamphlet and saying, hey, here we are to help you. It's more of what do you need to get through till you hear from your insurance company? What do you need to get through to the next day? And literally, like you said, we've been to Walmart and buy clothes and buy food and things like that, because we want to make sure, first of all, they're in the state to where we can get to talk to them, because even at that point, they're not thinking about what do I do. They're thinking about how do I get my stuff out of this home.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get them to not think about that, because there's things you can't take anything at that point. And so it's working through that with them.
But having a house that's a total loss,
Yes.
it's too late, right?
It's too late.
Too late.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So there is sort of a list that, again, this is probably something that's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and they're super traumatized. But things that they don't think about is, what do I need to make sure I have with me?
Yes.
And we have a whole list of
Yes.
that we work through with them. Do I have my medication? Do I have my passport? Do I have my driver's license? Do I have my car keys? Do I have, I have gold coins? Do I have my gold coins? Do I have my, expensive jewelry? And people don't think about that stuff. But if the house hasn't burned to the ground,
Right.
those are some of the things that you're like, well, I'm leaving tonight. Let me grab this stuff because I don't want to leave it behind.
We have a fireproof safe for our taxes and other important,
job.
documents, birth certificates, and things of that nature.
I think the term is fire retardant.
Okay.
None of them are fireproof, right?
But it's got to burn for a long,
90 minutes,
long time. for it to
1,200
happen.
degrees,
Yes.
and some are
Well,
better than others.
Now you made me paranoid.
Sorry.
Daggum it. I thought I had L.
You do. You do. You
Don't
do.
worry, I'm sure it's just me. Don't worry.
You do. I'm sure the fire department will be there within 90 minutes getting that fire.
Yeah, I hope so. Well,
If not, then you
no,
need to move.
they're pretty good about that. They're,
Yes,
they're
they are.
quick.
Our fire department is awesome. Crowley, Burleson, all around. So
Now, but I just, I have gone through this before. We to make sure that we know where things are.
yes, that's important.
And the big debate we had. I have a lot of books, and it's okay. I have a lot of books, or do we keep the furniture? I'm thinking, well, so that'd be a real tough one.
Yeah.
It's those emotional attachment type items. I'm sure that's a big problem more
Right,
than
and
just
what's-
furniture or whatnot, unless
right.
it's grandma's desk or something like that.
Right, and some things are salvageable. Like you said, when it's not a complete loss, and as Mr. Smith has explained, and that's definitely we walk through with our clients if it's salvageable or not. And then there's a whole process we go through to determine that, or if it's heirloom type situations, is it a situation where we can actually,
We always have that too.
restore that?
There were a
Yes.
couple of things that of great emotional value to Robin in particular that we would probably, we've taken care of in a sense that, it's a priority if we ever got in a situation where we had to, bail out of the house while it's burning or something like that. God bless you. We haven't had to do that yet, but we have a plan.
Good.
Yeah, but it isn't like we go over it every day. Okay, we're going to go over the plans, quiz. Okay, multiple choice test. No, but it's something that we've discussed on a fairly routine basis about damage. But one thing that none of us are prepared for, and you mentioned this earlier in the show, and that was that Snowmageddon episode. How did y'all deal with that?
It was tough, but we were just busy. We were really, in fact, at a certain point, we had to turn off all of our marketing, lead generation sources. We had a list of clients that was probably 60 different people on the list, and finally we had to say, we just can't take any more names because we'll never get to you guys. But when that occurred, we literally were working water jobs for the next 14 days. And then everything turned over to mold, and that mold lasted for the whole year.
Okay, you talk about mold. See, a lot of people assume mold is something that generates during warm weather or humid weather, but it's 24/7, 365.
It doesn't matter what the temperature is, as long as the humidity or the moisture content is high enough, you will get mold contamination. Mold doesn't care about the temperature.
Well, my wife about 2 years ago, said she was concerned about what we're talking about here, so she bought a dehumidifier. That's right, a dehumidifier. And I thought, man, I don't want to know if I want to spend that kind of money, but made her feel better. So why not? Does that help at all? The dehumidifier, like in our living area or by the den?
So most homes in Dallas-Fort Worth don't need it.
Oh, now
Well, I said most.
that's
I most.
$250. Well, where is okay?
Here are the caveats, though. So that assumes your HVAC system is in good working order. That assumes you're not living over an underground water source or underground river or limestone. And there are parts of DFW that are on limestone, and there's a tremendous amount of moisture underneath the homes. But generally speaking, if the HVAC system is working properly and the homeowners are using it properly, it keeps the humidity in the home low enough where you don't have any issues.
Well, she has a gauge, and our goal is to keep it at under 50%.
That's a good spot.
Yeah. Okay. And so so that thing is running. And when it gets under 50%, it stops running. Actually, a side benefit. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but side benefit. It collects the water out of the air, and we use that to water her drinages and whatever during July and August.
water.
It is free water in a sense because we go through these drought periods. It's at least it's a water source that we didn't have to use. But anyway, so like we said, we keep it at 50% because anything past that, what would be the danger levels of a percentage? Let's put it that way. What percentage would be to be
High or
alarming?
low?
High humidity percentage. What would that be?
So anything above 60%, mold can start to amplify is the term they use. When we experience a water loss, our goal is to reduce the humidity in the home, relative humidity, to 40% or less immediately. But if it's above 60%, I won't say you're asking for problems, but it's a situation that's conducive to mold amplification.
Right. That's interesting because, again, I thought it was a warm weather situation, but you say it really doesn't matter, does it?
You get mold in the refrigerator, cheese, right?
Well,
It's the same organism. I'll put it that. It's not the same thing, but
Robert keeps that refrigerator pretty clean and everything. We don't let it get moldy, but
pizza boxes.
Well, when he had kids in the house, yeah. But it's just interesting to me though that mold was such a problem after Snowmageddon because I figured everything was just frozen solid and
no one could get the homes properly dried, and so I think everything was frozen for about 10 days, and then everything unfroze, and people just let things kind of air dry because they had no option. And well, air drying doesn't work when it comes to a home.
How did you be able to manage to clean these homes or fix these homes or take care of these problems when the electricity was so inconsistent?
We had generators.
Okay.
We had generators.
There you go. Because in our situation, for a week, it was an hour on, hour off. We were at the cooperative, so we'd cook or charge our phones, and then boom, it just, you're going to be shut down for an hour. And you had to make sure everything was good. And it was just that way for about a week.
Yeah, no, we had 10K, 20K, 30K generators. So we had, I won't say plenty of power, but we had the power necessary to do the work.
Well, she showed me in the garage when I was there about a month ago, all the stuff y'all have, your big storeroom area. Y'all got some heavy-duty looking equipment. It looks like you're about ready to invade France or something,
or at least dry it out.
Right. No, these aren't box fans from Lowe's. I mean, these things are pretty good sized.
Yes.
And I'm sure there was some expense involved, but it's worth it, because how long, in a typical case, how long does it take you to take care of a home?
If we're talking about water, generally, if you've had a flood, 3 to 5 days, anywhere between 2 and 5 days, generally we can get a property dried out. Now, sometimes you can do it in 2 days, but there are other factors. What's the relative humidity? What type of materials were wet? Are you trying? We had one this week. They had a flood in a bedroom. On the other side of the bedroom wall was the kitchen. Beautiful cabinets in this kitchen. Beautiful cabinets.
You didn't have to tear them out, did you?
No, the client wanted us to dry, because the water ran from the bedroom under the wall and under the kitchen cabinets. The client asked us to dry under the cabinets in place. Well, we can do that. It takes longer, so that extended the drying time, which, if we had just taken the cabinets out, it would have dried a lot quicker. but then you'd have to buy all brand new cabinets. So it's a trade-off sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off.
It sounds like y'all are like crisis intervention teams, the way y'all describe things. You're there to take care of, pretty disastrous situations.
Yeah, there's definitely a cost-benefit analysis that's done on every job. There's always more than one way to approach it, and you have to sort of consult with the homeowner or property owner. We can do it this way, or we can do it that way, and the cost associated with this way versus that way is, X, but the rebuild or repair, to put that stuff back together, there's cost factored with that. And generally, no one calls us for, I spilled a glass of Kool-Aid. It's not a small thing. We get called in for, what are significant and major.
Glass of Kool-Aid, huh?
Yeah.
I like strawberry.
I like orange.
Well, we almost had to call a crisis intervention team. I spilled a little wine on the carpet once. Oh, my Lord. But there you go. Which is better, carpet or wood floors? Because we're debating it right now, Robin and I, because we have carpet for most of the house except for some tile. And we want to clear out the carpet. Which is better? Which is easier to take care of for y'all?
You mean in case it was a water problem?
Right.
I know that's what I was saying. I was looking at you. I want to hear this answer because I don't know there is an answer for that because they're all tough.
Okay.
So if you have carpet and the carpet gets wet, at a very minimum, you have to take the carpet up and pull the padding out from underneath it. And then depending on the type of water, you can sometimes dry the carpet and then reuse it. With wood, if the water gets under the wood, it's often very difficult to get that water out from under the wood without removing the wood. Sometimes you can suck the water through the wood, but more often than not, and when I say through, I'm talking about railwood floors that have the 3-inch slats and there's seams in between. We have suction mats that you can put on the wood floors, and it will suck the minuscule amounts of water out through the seams between the slats of wood. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. So to your point, your question, which is better if you have a water damage in terms of cleaning up, I'd probably have to say there's a better chance of reducing the expense if you have carpet and it's fresh water, because we can pull the carpet pad, dry it, whereas with wood, if it's really been wet and it's soaked through, you're going to have to take up the entire wood floor.
Our job is too small for y'all. Like, let's have a leak in my bathroom. It's not particularly big. Do I call y'all or?
No job is too small except for the cup of Kool-Aid. The cup of water that he referenced.
But because sometimes if you catch it in time and you turn the water off, whatever, your bathroom may be damaged, but the rest of the house, would the rest of the house be damaged by that?
So what I tell people is you're better off to call us and let us check it out, or at least talk about it over the phone. We don't charge people to do preliminary assessments, and what might look like a small thing to a property owner might be a much bigger thing. You can't always see where the water goes, or it may look like it's dried. But when our guys show up with the thermal imaging cameras and the moisture meters, they can actually see the moisture content in the drywall or under the floor or behind the baseboards, which a person with just their eyes isn't going to be able to see. And so I say, hey, you know what? If the sink overflowed and it overflowed for a couple of minutes, fine, give us a call. We'll take a look at it. And if there's nothing to see, there's nothing to see.
Well, we'd hate to waste your time because it sounds like you're pretty busy.
Our margins are okay.
Okay.
We do okay.
Well, no, but I've seen that equipment. I've seen your operation. It's not a cheap operation. It's not like you're not just coming in there with a mop and a broom. You're going in there with some heavy-duty stuff. She, one time at a BNI, she brought one of her blow fans.
The axial fans,
Yeah, I was like, my gosh, it looks like something out of Hollywood. She had to lug that thing in on a dolly. And so this is big-time stuff. And it's not stuff you go down on to Home Depot, I'm afraid.
No. Even though they'd love to try and get into that business. But it's not even the equipment. It's knowing how to use it, when to use it, where to use it.
And probably getting the right staff. I know that's not an easy thing. You can't just you have to have somebody that's not only just willing to work, but also, trainable, maybe some experience. Do y'all still need people? Or do you always need people?
We are always hiring the right kind of people.
Right.
And I'm very specific in that I say the right kind of people. We have had instances where we will make a position for the right kind of person to get them on board. And to your point, there's a lot of things that goes into finding the right person for what we do.
Well, what would be the right person?
And again, depending on the role, but there's, assuming, let's talk technicians or field people, there's technical aptitude. Do you know what a Phillips screwdriver is? We laugh, but that's really a thing. But even besides that, if you have technical aptitude, if I can teach you the things you need to know, if you are attentive, if you have memory, if you can sort of put 2 and 2 together and understand how that equals 4.
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking skills, perfect. If you know how to speak to people, if you know how to be empathetic to our clients, if you know when to say or how to say, hey, I need some help, or do you know how to say, you know what, I don't know, let me get back to you. Those type of soft skills and technical aptitude are first and foremost. The rest of this stuff, we can teach people. We have pretty robust training courses and on-the-job training, and we have mentors that coach and guide them. But it's really, do you have the critical thinking skills, and do you know how to interact and engage with people?
You just don't find that easily, do you?
You don't.
I talk to other business owners and our friends at BNI, and they're like, we need people, and a lot of people, I think when they come into y'all, they may not know it's also pretty physical, isn't it? To some degree.
Yeah. So on a considerable amount of the work our field people do, and I'm speaking specifically about the field people, they're wearing hazardous material clothing. They're wearing these suits. They're wearing full-face respirators.
Right.
It gets hot, especially when we're working in properties in Texas in the middle of the summer. Yet we have to turn the AC systems off. And so you're working in these buildings that doesn't have air conditioning. You have these full-body suits on. You're wearing respirators, and you sound like Darth Vader. So it can be very physical. There's a lot of sweat. Yeah. There's no way around it.
Sounds like a great weight loss program.
Yeah.
Well, we're about out of time. We're about 5 minutes left. I'd like to let y'all tell the people here what you would want them to look for and how to find a job primarily. One thing I will say, I enjoyed the part about other than just the water, because that's what I came in here today, and I didn't really realize about the fire and the unattended death, and I think that's really good information to have. But y'all tell the vast listening audience all the way into Virginia, apparently, so tell us how they get a hold of you and what they can expect.
Sure. You can find us on Google at Stop Restoration West of Fort Worth, or if you're in the DFW market, if you just look up Stop Restoration or Service Team of Professionals, you'll see us on Google, and you'll see our 5-star Google review ratings. And I bring that up because, like our listeners, I live in the community. I hire contractors, I hire plumbers, I hire mechanics, I hire doctors. And it's often very difficult to know who we're hiring. And so I sort of rely on Google reviews and Amazon reviews pretty heavily in order to determine, is this somebody I should even entertain hiring? And so I always encourage people, whether you're looking for a plumber or you're looking for a restoration company, the best resource you have to get a sense of who and what kind of company you're hiring are their online Google reviews. So I always encourage people to look at ours. Our office is right here in Crowley, right off 1187 in Chisholm Trail. So we're a locally owned and operated company. We are a national franchise, and so that gives us the strength and breadth and support from a national brand. But the buck stops here, so to speak. If there's an issue, there's a concern, there's a question, there's no, hey, I have to call Michigan to get an answer for you. We can resolve it locally. And while we do strive to do 100% and be the best at everything we do, there are occasions when things happen. Sometimes it's our fault, sometimes it's no fault of our own. And people can rest assured that if things go wrong or they're less than optimal, we're going to make it right. You won't have to try and hunt us down. You won't get, go to voicemail. Call the office, 682-703-0213. You can speak with our business manager, and if she can't solve it, it will get escalated to me, and I will resolve it one way or the other.
And our website?
Oh, www.stopwestfortworth.com. And I know I'm not supposed to say www because the cool kids don't say that.
Well, we still call it the internet.
Yes. Facebook.
The Facebook, you know.
The internet, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn as well.
Stop of Western Fort Worth.
Well, I tell you what, now you get Taylor that website address and you put it on the bottom of the screen here so people who watch this on YouTube and Facebook can see it.
Awesome.
So yes, we would definitely do that, and it's stopwestfortworth.com, but we'll definitely give it to Taylor as well. And then, like we said, you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn, as he stated. And, you know, that the 682 number 7030213 is a 24-hour number as well.
Last time you were here, you were talking about interrupted holidays and such as that. And
yeah, for sure.
Oh, well, I enjoyed it. I really did. I mean, I learned a lot when I talked to y'all. I try not to get too paranoid, but I learned a lot and know and get a better idea what's going on behind your business, but also what I need to be looking for and be aware of. And so, okay, what do we got going on next week? Well, a week from today, on a Thursday, I'm going to be showing various video clips of Burleson local businesses. I'm going to go around. I'm going to go around to small business. I got about 10 that are lined up so far. I'm going to go by my little phone, or they'll send me something. But I'm going to buy a phone and hey, tell us about your business. And like I have Rebecca's Sassy Boutique, and then they have. I'm going by Candy's office.
Okay,
her with her U Mortgage.
Yes.
And, there's a coffee shop that's apparently on 1187 I haven't heard of, and it's just opened up. So it's the kind of thing. So check out next Thursday. It'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to look on the Thrive calendar from our friend Dee Dee and see who else I got, because I've been focusing on that so much that I haven't really been paying attention to what I got coming up. Come on, boot up. Internet. Here it is. All right, calendar. I've really been using this Thrive calendar quite a bit.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, because
it's worked for you.
Yes, it has. I have.
Thank you.
Oh, I know. On the 22nd, on Monday, I'm going to have a woman named Tony Wing Jenkins, and we're going to talk about something that no one's really thinking about here, called ranked choice voting, where you vote. Not just here's your person and then you move to the next race. You could say, I want 1, 2, and 3, maybe.
Okay.
And they do that in Alaska, and they do it in some places else, and she's wanting to talk about that. So it's kind of a little different. And then remember our friends from Mind Over Matter that came?
Yes, those ladies were phenomenal.
Yes, they're going to be here. So there you go.
Good.
All right. And all right, guys, this will be on YouTube. It's already on YouTube, but this will be on Apple and Spotify pretty soon. So we look forward to seeing you next week.